pieces of legislation that have been introduced that would deal with the, or offer sort of different incentives to the undocumented population, and they sort of never get through the state legislature. I'm thinking of the driver's license bill, which maybe some of you are familiar with, or the Trust Act. And so maybe I can ask you about, the sense that you feel the undocumented population here in Lawrence has a sense of its rights and responsibilities, or also maybe how do you get a population like that to engage in the democratic process?
I think that in Lawrence we do have people who engage in the democratic process even when they aren't necessarily able to vote because they feel that it is important to be part of the process. But I think it's very important that people are well informed as to who has the right to vote, who doesn't have the right to vote, and what is the limitations that you have in your participation. So I believe this community is very participant, and I don't think I'm the only person to have that opinion. There's a large legal permanent resident population in Lawrence because many Dominicans came to the United States as documented, and they brought their families to the United States, and they were able to get documented early on when they came. The people that came in my father's generation in the 60s and the 70s, they were able to get legal papers to be in the United States. But then you have other communities who are largely undocumented, like, for example, the Guatemalans and the Salvadorians are largely undocumented. So the Dominicans is probably the most actively participant community, even when they do not have United States citizenship. They do hold signs and they make phone calls and they are out there making sure that the candidate that they prefer does make it. So it's a very active community when it comes to participating.
And I think we've had a lot of reactionary policies that have, around immigration, that have occurred over the last few decades that were not, again, part of the American story. They are not part of the American values. And they really, these policies, by forcing people into the shadows, they have really, depressed wages. People are working under the table. It's not healthy for any of us. We really need to fix our very broken immigration policies, because that's what they are, is policies, and they can be changed. But it's such an important issue for us, I believe.
I think that what's happening in Washington is very sad because this sort of passing the bucket and this what's happening between Democrats and Republicans is just very sad. It's the blame game that's going on, and we just have to be very mindful of that. And if we do, this hurts families in general. This hurts the fact that there's no immigration reform happening. You mentioned the license, people being able to have a driver's license. This affects us all. When somebody is driving a car without a license and they're not able to have insurance and they get into an accident with someone else, that affects our community in general. So I think it's important for us to understand the magnitude that it has in our communities when we don't think of policies that are good for everyone that could be affected at the end. And I think having a driver's license for somebody who's undocumented will fix some of the issues that they're having. And in the meantime, there's a lot that the states can do because the federal government is not really moving forward with comprehensive immigration reform.
Can I ask you, in the city of Lawrence, then, one of the other pieces of legislation that's come up time and again in the Massachusetts State House is this idea of a trust act. That people don't trust the law enforcement, and part of that is because of the federal Secure Communities program. I'm wondering how you all feel that the Lawrence immigrant community, maybe we can speak specifically about the undocumented population, feels interacting with the police or interacting with, let's say the police force here in the city.
Well, I think that in Lawrence, there's a lot to be implemented when it comes to the way the police officers deal with the population in general. I don't think it's necessarily only the immigrant population, but the citizenship in general. I believe that there's this level of, there's the lack of trust between citizens in general and the police. Just because I believe that the police force in Lawrence needs to be better trained on how to deal with an immigrant population that may not know the rights and responsibilities when they first come here, and then the way that they're treated by the police when they may get in trouble for something that they might not know, creates that lack of trust towards police officers. I have people who come to my office and have a record, a few sheets of records for disturbing the peace, open container, for stupid little things that if they would have known that it was wrong, they would have not done it. You know, for maybe speaking too loud when the police is coming around and trying to disperse the crowd. So I believe that there's a lot of training that needs to happen with, especially the Lawrence Police Department, on how to treat and how to deal with some of the issues regarding criminality and new immigrants.
I would also say that, to me, this is one of the things that speaks to the need for different strategies around civic engagement, in not just in this city, but in cities like this across the country. And I know, part of the work that Lawrence Community Works does is we do a lot of work training neighbors, residents. It doesn't matter if you're documented, undocumented, citizen, not citizen, like none of that even comes into play. Just training them in how to meet their neighbors, have conversations with their neighbors, participate in larger conversations that are happening in the city, whether that's around the city budget or economic development issues or public safety or trash. And there's so many ways that people can participate and give their strengths back to a community without, before they even might become citizens or can vote or participate in those ways. And those are ways that a community can tap into the strengths and assets that an immigrant population has. So, for instance, if one of the things that you're doing in a neighborhood is having meetings fairly regularly that are open, that are talking about public safety issues in that community, and police are coming to them and neighbors are coming to them, and no one's asking in that meeting like whether you're a citizen or a resident or what it is, but you're focused together on a common goal, which is how do we make this place safer, then you're going to get a lot further down the road than focusing on some of these other issues. So I do feel like there is a way to approach some of these conversations that is an asset-based approach rather than a fear-based approach. And I feel like there's some ways in which Lawrence has some lessons and models that could be applied elsewhere in that area.
Thank you. I want to shift gears